Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone to another Ref Brandon and the Todd family YouTube video. Wherever you are, whatever you may be doing, thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd family part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. We are continuing to count down the days to the beginning of the 2024 college football season. So today I want to talk about all the new head coaches at the FBS level, and we'll do that in a couple of minutes. But first, I want to give you a quick NASCAR update for the Cup Series from this past Sunday, because we had the Verizon 200 at the Brickyard, and it was won by Kyle Larson, Tyler Reddick second, Ryan Blaney third, Christopher Bell fourth, and Darrell Wallace Jr. rounds out the top five. 6 through 10, Todd Gilliland, Austin Cindric, Daniel Suarez, Noah Gragson, and Chase Elliott rounded out the top 10. Only a couple of races left before the playoffs start, but there's no race for the next 2 weeks because of the Olympics, because of course the Olympics start this week, and the Olympics comes on the NBC family of networks, and so does NASCAR, and of course the Olympics takes precedent over NASCAR. So since the Olympics will be on USA and CNBC and MSNBC and NBC, if NASCAR was to run a race, it would not be on TV. So it would not be very smart for NBC to run a race and not have the race on, and it can't be on another network because it's NBC's time to carry NASCAR. So no NASCAR race this weekend or next weekend. The next race will be coming up on Sunday, August the 11th at 6 o'clock from Richmond. And that will be the Federated Auto Parts 400. Now on to some college football. I still call it Division 1, but most people now call it FBS, which stands for Football Bowl Subdivision. And of course, Division 1 AA is called the FCS, which stands for Football Championship Subdivision. But now that the FBS has playoffs, they really both have playoffs, so maybe they're going to go back to calling it Division 1A and 1AA. I'm really not sure. But we have 28 new head coaches at the FBS level this year. Of course, some are first-time head coaches. Some are coaches that have just left one program for another. And some are coaches who have been fired by a previous team, whether it was last year or years ago, and now they're back in the head coaching game. Well, let's take a look at the 28 new head coaches. Of course, we have Kalen DeBoer at Alabama, Mike Elko at Texas A&M. Now, I'll make a couple of comments along the way about some of these coaches, but with 28 new coaches, if I comment on every single one of them, this video will take all day long. Manny Diaz is now the coach at Duke. I actually think Manny Diaz is a decent coach. I think he got done wrong by Miami. Miami ran him off way too soon. I think he's a decent coach. Bill O'Brien is back as a head coach at Boston College. Of course, we know he's been around forever. Hopefully he'll be more successful this time around. He's done good in his career as an OC, but he hasn't had much luck as a head coach. Bronco Mendenhall is out of retirement. He's now the head coach at New Mexico. We know he used to coach for years at BYU, and he left and he went to Virginia, and maybe he just didn't like the East Coast. I'm not really sure, but he went to Virginia, turned them around, and then a handful of years ago said, hey, I'm retiring. But now a position comes open back out west, New Mexico. he's back coaching again. And I know it's not out west, but it's a lot further west than Virginia. Jedd Fisch is now at Washington. Willie Fritz is the new head coach at Houston. They fired Dana Holgorsen. Now, we know Willie Fritz used to be the coach at Tulane. He was supposed to be the new head coach at Georgia Tech before they hired the guy they have now. But when Georgia Tech called Willie Fritz, Tulane had a big bowl game ready to play. And he said, hey, let me coach this team in the bowl game, and then I'll come to Atlanta. And Georgia Tech said, no, we ain't doing that. We want you now, or we don't want you at all. So he stayed one more year at Tulane, and now he is at Houston. Curt Cignetti is the new head coach at Indiana. Ken Niumatalolo is the new head coach at San Jose State. And I actually read the article about him only because Ken Niumatalolo used to coach at Navy, and we know Navy ran the triple option for years. Now, back in the day, every team ran the triple option or the option, the wishbone, the T-bone, something. But now the only schools that run it are the service academies. So I was curious as to whether or not Ken Niumatalolo was going to run the triple option at San Jose State. He's not. They're going to run the spread offense they had under Brannon. Deshaun Foster is the new head coach at UCLA. Jeff Lebby takes over at Mississippi State. And Spencer Danielson is now the full-time coach at Boise State. He coached the end of last season when they fired their coach. He was the interim, and then they named Spencer Danielson the permanent head coach. Hopefully he is no kin to Gary Danielson, but that's not a very common last name, so they might be kin. Jonathan Smith, of course, leaves Oregon State to go to Michigan State. John Sumrall takes over at Tulane. Sharon Smith is now the new coach at Michigan. Of course, he coached there last year while Jim Harbaugh was suspended. He is now the permanent coach. And Brent Brannon, as I just mentioned, after leaving San Jose State, is now the new coach at Arizona because Jedd Fisch left Arizona to go to Washington, and that's the head coaching ripple effect. Bob Chesney is now the new head coach of the Dukes of James Madison. Major Applewhite takes over at South Alabama. That's still one of my all-time favorite names. How can you not pull for a guy whose name is Major Applewhite? Sean Lewis takes over at San Diego State. Bryant Vincent is the new coach of Louisiana Monroe. Pete Lembo, the new coach at Buffalo. Jeff Choate is the new coach at Nevada. Now, a lot of folks may not know this, but for all you people that watch the channel that live in Georgia, there was and may still be a radio personality from the Atlanta area whose on-air name is Cadillac Jack. Well, his real name is William Choate. So I'm curious if Jeff Choate is kin to William Choate, better known as Cadillac Jack. Jay Salvell takes over at Wyoming. Scotty Walden is the new coach at UTEP. Fran Brown takes over at Syracuse. Trent Bray takes over at Oregon State. Gerard Parker is the new coach at Troy. And Derek Mason takes over at Middle Tennessee State. And Derek Mason could go there and go 6-6 and have a job for life, because if you look at the last coach at Middle Tennessee State, his name was Rick Stockstill, and he pretty much retired after last season. And if you look at his record there, he basically went 6-6 every year and I think he coached there for, I believe, 15 years. So if Derek Mason goes there and goes 6-6, 7-5, he'll be fine. So no pressure at all on him. But it's not a very far drive from Vanderbilt to Middle Tennessee State. So if he had just been fired by Vanderbilt, he'd have it made. But he's been at a couple places and coached as an assistant between Vanderbilt and now at Middle Tennessee State. As always, any thoughts on any of this, please feel free to let me know. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. The teacher asked the child, use the word chapter in a sentence. The child said, my lips get chapped in the winter, but hers get even chapter. And that does it for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them. Bye.